And so today we're talking about negotiation. Everything is negotiable. I think everything in life, the thing about negotiation is we don't even realize sometimes that we're negotiating when we are negotiating. Um, I think of my kids a lot when I think of negotiation. I'm always trying to figure out a way to negotiate with them on how to go to bed on time, how to eat better, brush your teeth twice a day, 3 times a day. So, but all of life is a negotiation, and everything is really negotiable. So we're going to talk about that. So good negotiators going in know they have to be ready for the possible surprises, but great negotiators aim to use their skills to reveal the surprises they are certain exists. So when I think about this, it's kind of like what we do in our discovery when we're on our cold calls. We're trying to figure out the why, the motivation, and uncover, things that we don't exactly know are there yet. And in order to do that, we have to really engage in the process with a mindset of discovery. So the best thing is to just really listen, to extract and observe as much information as possible, and keep them talking, keep it more about them. I think questioning the assumptions that the rest involved accept on faith or in arrogance because they think they know it all is what we need to be questioning. So, assumptions are not a good thing. You know that what assume stands for, right? If you break down the word. So we can never really assume that we know exactly what's going on. We need to remain more emotionally open to all the possibilities, because what I'll show you later on is that this is a highly emotional process. Like human beings are very emotional. We're animal in nature. And then actively listen and ask collaborating questions or collaborated questions. So without a deep understanding of the deep psychological human psychology, without the acceptance that we are essentially crazy, irrational and impulsive and emotionally driven animals, all the raw intelligence and the mathematical logic in the world is little help in the fraught shifting interplay of two people negotiating. We are always an animal, always acting and reacting first and foremost from our deeply held but most invisible fears, needs, perceptions, and desires. So that's one of the quotes from the book Never Split the Difference that caught me right off the bat. It just made me kind of think of the quote, logic makes us think, but emotion makes us act. And, if we want to find out how to influence people, we have to really already find out what's influencing them. So that is definitely a skill. So, dealing with the crazy, this is my favorite part, because like I totally relate to this. Like we all, like it's like calming the schizophrenic inside of us, because we're all very easily distracted. I myself am a very poor time manager, because you'll see later on my negotiation style is the accommodator. But we really engage in selective listening. So we really are only hearing what we want to hear. And, the fact that we're approaching everything from our own bias is really what we're contending with. So we're really negotiating with ourselves. And there's, if you're negotiating with one other person, you're probably actually really negotiating with 4 people, because there's a few voices in our heads that are actually really always going. So we don't want to commit to assumptions. Instead, we got to view them, like I said, don't ever assume, but we view these assumptions as hypothesis, and potentially use them in the negotiation to test them rigorously. People who are assertive in their style of negotiation, it's tough because they kind of treat the negotiation as a battle of arguments. So they become really overwhelmed by the voices in their head, their own bias, and it really disrupts the process of the discovery. So the goal is really to uncover as much info as possible. And the way you do that is to really actively listen. So to quiet the voices in your head, Make it an ongoing practice to focus solely on the person and exactly what they have to say. So silence is really and actively listening. So mirroring back what you're hearing is very key to extracting more information, and information is like gold in negotiations. So slow it down. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I make. I tend to over explain and kind of talk a little bit faster when I'm trying to make a point. So by slowing it down, we not only get a little bit more chance to react and respond in a fashion that's better heard, but it also, I don't risk undermining the rapport that I've built ahead of time. So put a smile on your face. So, when dialing for dollars and, over the phone, like our biggest tool is our voice, right? So we want to convey a positive state of mind, and we want to actually, so the NLP there is neuro-linguistic programming. So it's thought that if you put a smile on your face, it's almost impossible to be in a bad mood. So, and then when we're in a positive state of mind, we're more collaborative and we can be better problem solvers. So it actually works. Just put a smile on your face, I swear, even when you're in a bad mood, and all of a sudden things just start to feel a little bit more easier and softer. So our brains don't just process the action and the words of others, but their feelings and intentions too. When I first heard that, I think I always kind of felt and knew that in my heart, but I felt that was kind of woo-woo in a way. Like, oh, I'm feeling your vibes or your intentions or your emotions. But the fact is, it is kind of an innate thing that we do psychologically as human beings. We want to, we can just based off tone, body language, speech patterns, things like that, we can tell, are you ready to play? Are you ready to have fun? Are you ready to fight? Are you ready to cry? And we can kind of relate to those emotions. It's really more of a feeling and an intention. So never discount that in your negotiations. So I want to talk about the 3 tones of voice. So were you guys aware that there's 3 tones of voice that we have access to when we're negotiating? Neither did I. But we all use these, maybe unconsciously or subconsciously in a way. But when you use them intentionally to really kind of extract what you want out of the situation and to get favorable terms, or, maybe you're negotiating a contract or negotiating with, some clients over fees or whatever the case may be. If you intentionally use these things, you're definitely going to get a lot more traction. So the late night FM DJ voice. So that's the voice that is downward in inflection. It's a statement. It's calm. It's slow. It creates an authority and a trustworthiness. It's the voice of reason. The FM DJ voice is taking requests and we're sending you off to a happy little lullaby, right? So that's, it definitely works, right? Like, what were the feelings that came up when I was talking like that, right? So even myself, I started to calm down. And so you can use that voice. You really want to use that more when it's when you've already kind of established a rapport. It's kind of the closest thing we have in negotiations to a Jedi mind trick, if you will. So it definitely just gives people, especially when they're in a tense situation, that's kind of one of the best, times to use it is when there's kind of a tense situation. It's a real good way to break up that tenseness and make everybody relax and feel like it's all going to work out. The positive and playful voice is where you should probably sit. I'm not going to give you a percentage, but you should probably sit there the majority of your time. This is light and encouraging. It's easygoing. It's very good natured. There's a real upward inflection. It's It's a very accommodating feel. And the key to that one is to relax and smile, even on the phone, because we know that tonality comes through and that people can sense that you're smiling over the phone. Again, this also increases your mental agility. It makes you a better problem solver, and more creative. So you're not in that fight or flight situation where your brain is kind of shutting down. The assertive voice is rarely should ever, if ever, be used. It goes with more of the assertive or aggressive negotiation style. It gets a lot of pushback because even if they're kind of placating you and agreeing with you, at the same time, if you're assertive, what they're resisting it, they're pushing back because it's really signaling dominance. So it doesn't work really well. There's probably a few situations we've all used it in, like, are you kidding me? You know, like, but you don't want to get overly emotional and let that get carried away with you. It can be to your detriment because you're going to get a lot of pushback there. So here's a little video. These guys are called the Black Swan Group. This is a little secret, the secret power of inflection, the late night FM DJ voice. You can see Derek Gaunt is one of the trainers there at the Black Swan Group, and he's gonna, you know, give you a little heads up on the late night DJ voice and kind of what that sounds like. Can you guys hear the sound?
Hello, Black Swan negotiators. Hello, top 1%. Today, I'm going to introduce you to Derek Gaunt. This guy is smooth. He can give you change for an ice cube. He's the author of a great book, Ego, Authority, and Failure, and he's one of the Black Swan team. In this video, Derek's going to talk about labeling and mirroring. The video is also about the infamous late night FM DJ voice and inflection. Now, the key to this is the fact that Derek is a natural at the late night FM DJ voice. So as you listen to this, take in Derek's tone of voice and feel how it is. People find him reassuring.
The common theme with labels and mirrors is what? What do you think the common theme is?
Get more information.
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get more information. But the common theme is I'm taking what you give me, I'm repackaging it, and I'm giving it right back to you. By labeling and mirroring, am I convincing him to move in a certain direction with my words or with his own? That, in effect, removes you as a threat in the conversation, because as long as you remain a threat, no meaningful dialogue is ever going to take place. When people push back against your ask, when they offer resistance, when they tell you no, when they issue a threat or a demand accompanying a threat, what they're telling you is, I'm afraid of something, or I don't trust you. Labels and mirrors removes you as a threat. The mirrors are so powerful because you don't even have to think. You get stuck, you don't know where to go in negotiation. All you got to do is do what she did and remember something about the conversation and repeat it back to them. Repackaging exactly what they give you, giving it back to them removes you as a threat. And that, from that point on, more meaningful dialogue can take place. He mentioned something about the inflection upwards or downwards. So when I say she doesn't listen to me anymore and it makes me angry, how would you mirror that? She doesn't listen to me anymore and it makes me angry. How would you mirror that? Last 1 to 5 words. Take it easy. Let's not get too fancy with this yet. We'll give you time. I heard it over here. Makes you angry. Now, inflect upwards on that. Makes you angry? What is he asking me? Yeah, expand upon that. Now, inflect downward. Makes you angry. What is he telling me with that? I hear you. I get it. I'm picking up what you're laying down. Both of them show that I'm listening. Both of them showing that I'm attending. The inflections encourages them to go on without saying, please go on. And then the downward inflection shows that I'm paying attention.
So I think that you can see that the power of inflection, it's a really, really powerful thing. And you can basically say the same words, but it's how we're saying it. It makes it totally different. So both are, the power of mirroring is both ways, in upward or downward. It shows that I am listening first and foremost. So there's just nothing more frustrating than, when you feel like somebody's not listening to you. But also it's a way of making them either agreeing with them and validating them or having them expand on it. So that's basically what mirroring is. So it's a neural behavior. It's not just us, other animals do it as well, but it's where we display and we copy each other. And it's essentially so I can make you feel comfortable. That's why we mirror subconsciously. Mirrors in negotiating are a way that we can extract more data, obviously. So it's really generally an unconscious behavior, but it is a sign subconsciously that we're in sync, that we're bonding, and that we're building trust. So it can be done with not only speech patterns, body language, vocabulary, tempo, and tone of voice. But when you're a negotiator, you want to really focus, like he was saying, solely on the words, not really the tone, because we can go up or down depending on what we want to get out of it. But we really want to, focus on the last few words. So there is a method that they talk about on how to confront and get your way. And it's a pretty easy 4 to 5 step process there. So it's using the FM DJ voice. So I'm calm and I simply repeat back the last 3 words or the most critical ones of what you just said. That triggers the mirror, right? And then you want to wait. So silence is really key right here. So you want to wait for at least 4 seconds. I know that the silence that we experienced this morning, I wanted to talk, right? I don't know about any of you guys, but I wanted to break the silence. In fact, I think I was the one who broke the silence because it's just, for me as an accommodator, silence means you're mad, right? And so we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about negotiation styles, but let the mirror work its magic. So the instinct for that person to elaborate or continue the process of connecting is almost irresistible. And then you just repeat the process. So this is something that you would want to do once you've had a bit of discovery, you've built some rapport. What I'm thinking about is when we're talking about our buyer's consultations. So when I go to the highest point of friction and I look you in the eye and I basically, okay, so, it sounds like you're going to be a match for me to work with you. And we hope that, we're a match to work with, for you to work with us. So would you like me to be your real estate agent? Right. And I let that silence work. Whatever they say after that, I can mirror and then let the silence work again. Right. So I don't know. So blah, blah, blah. I just want to probably, interview a few more agents. Oh, so you want to interview a few more agents. They will say something there, I guarantee it. But if I elaborate on it, then I'm putting something in their head that might not actually be there. So just by letting that silence sit, then I can possibly know what objection I need to handle. The worst thing that we can do in that situation is sell us out of the sale. We don't know what we're up against until they tell us. So really letting that mirror do its magic, I think, is something that I will need your guys' practice on, because as you can see, it's very uncomfortable. But you know, it works. So this is the secret power of inflection. And you can see, again, another example of him talking to his people that he coaches at the Black Swan Group, and just another example of inflection.
All right, guys, we're going to talk about inflection today, tonality. Now, I realize that you're thinking right now, you know, that's just really mundane stuff. But the mastery level, the black belt skill level here is in a slight, subtle touch that makes all the difference in the world. And it's at the end of a statement that you really want to land well, where it inflects up, almost as if it was a question. That makes sure that something that's really important that you have to land is going to land without causing them to get their guard up. I'll give you an example. We're in a training session and we're telling people that labeling a negative in advance doesn't plant a negative. Now, this scares a lot of people. So we tell them about it theoretically, and they say, okay, you know, it kind of goes sort of past them. But then when we talk about actually doing it, it scares them. So we go through it, we say, all right, we want you to label these negatives in advance. They go, oh, no, I can't do that. That'll plant a negative. Now, we've told them earlier that it doesn't, and I've got to remind them of that, but gently. Now, I could say, so when we told you earlier that labeling a negative in advance doesn't plant it, you thought we were wrong. Now, my tone of voice inflecting down is kind of harsh, and there's a pretty good chance that saying it like that may cause it to land hard and cause their guard to be up. And I don't need the guard to be up. So instead, I need to say it. So when we told you before that labeling a negative in advance doesn't plant a negative, you thought we were wrong? Now, saying it like that the second time, make sure it lands. I could say you thought I was wrong, as if I think you're wrong. Or I can say, you thought I was wrong? As if I'm genuinely questioning. I said it the second way, and the person we were teaching said, oh, no, I guess not. And that's exactly the way I needed it to land. So tonality at the end ensures that what you have to have land will land the way you want it to, so that they think about it. It triggers the thought pattern that you want it to think, and it doesn't cause their guard to come up. Inflecting up at the end is a master negotiator move and mastery of tonality.
So, you know, in our scripts for Zillow, that's kind of the inflecting up, right? So are you window shopping, or, you know, are you just window shopping at this point, or looking to make a move in the near future? Or are you looking for fun? Like you know, I want it to be, I don't want it to be off-putting, right? So I want to land that question to where they're comfortable saying no. And no starts the negotiation. So I want them to get to the no, because the no is going to uncover a lot more than if they're just placating and agreeing with me just to be agreeable to get me off the phone. So we want to focus on the no questions. So here's some calibrated how questions that, you know, some are getting you to the no, but the biggest thing is it puts the pressure on your counterpart to come up with the answer and to contemplate your problems when making demands. So with enough of these how questions, it can shape the environment in such a way that you will be eventually get the answer that you want. It's kind of a graceful and gentle way for you to say no, and then guide them closer to your solution. So some examples are, and this is the famous one from the book, Never Split the Difference, but how am I supposed to do that? How am I going to be able to offer that much? So like Terry, we were talking today, right? how can you help me so I don't have to go out in the car with these guys and get this job done and get the deal done? So asking a calibrated how question there. How will we know we're on track? How will we address the things if we are off track? And then here's some other ones that aren't necessarily how, but kind of lead you to that how. Sounds like you have a place that you want to start. And you can go upward in your inflection on that. Seems like you have a good reason for not doing whatever. So when I statements are really off-putting. So, but it seems or it feels like that is less threatening, but you can still get your point across. What makes you ask? That's just uncovering the question under the question. So a little bit more about motivation and the why. Seems like you have a good reason for asking that. So how questions can define the terms of successful implementation in their own voice. So basically, yes is really nothing without how we're going to do it. So we need to make sure we have a plan of implementation, and then we're going to repeat it back to them and summarize. And what we want to get from it is that that's right, or an agreement. We want them to agree with our summary and repeat it back to them. So I talked about going for the no. No starts the negotiation. No allows the real issues to be brought forward. No protects people from making and lets them correct ineffective decisions. No slows down everything so that people can kind of freely embrace their decisions and agree. No helps people feel safe. So that's why we do that. Are you looking for fun? Or looking to make a move in the near future? We want them to be comfortable and feel safe and secure that they can get out of this. Like, we're not some sleazy salesman. We want you to say we're looking for fun. In fact, I invite that in, because now I can talk about the why and the motivation behind, oh yeah, what has you looking for fun? I love looking for fun too. It's kind of a national obsession, right? Oh, yada, yada, yada. And they'll tell you, oh, tell me more. So now you're actively listening. Now you're actively engaged in that person's story. It's like you're seeing the world from their point of view. And then no moves everyone's efforts forward. So just kind of something fun to play with. Like, I don't know how many of you guys do this, but I do it all the time. I always say, is now a good time to talk? I never say, is now a bad time to talk? Right? So try to flip some of your questions. I always go for yes questions, but if you go for no's, it's much more powerful. Are you against X? Is it a ridiculous idea that blah, 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 blah? Have you given up on your real estate search? I want them to say, no, you're not dropping the ball, nothing like that. And then they'll elaborate more, because they feel safe and secure to do so. And they're in control of the conversation there in their mind. So this is a quote from Dale Carnegie: the only way on earth to influence other people is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it. So in other words, in order to influence people, you have to find out what's already influencing them. So the neural resonance, are you guys familiar with this? It's something we do pretty naturally. So empathy is a classic soft communication skill, but it has a physical basis. So when we closely observe a person's face, gestures, tone, voice, our brains begin to align with theirs in a process called neural resonance. And that's lets us know more fully what they think and feel. So we're really speaking to that, what we talked about the intentions, the emotions. There was an MRI brain scan experiment done by Princeton University that found that neural resonance disappears when people are communicating poorly. So they're just out of sync. They're not bonding. They're going away from trust and rapport. So the researchers could predict how well people were communicating by how well their brains aligned. And they discovered that people who paid the most attention could actually anticipate what the speaker was about to say before he said it. So there's a little practice, and you can do this pretty much anywhere you are. If you're people watching like I do, or if you're watching an interview on TV, if you want to increase your neural resonance skills, there's a method. So you turn your attention to someone around you that's talking, either on TV or somebody in the background. As they talk, you literally imagine you are that person. So, I mean, I even like kind of think about like closing my eyes just to listen to the words and the tonality. And then I open my eyes and I watch their gestures, their body language, their face, as their mouth turning downwards when I talk about, or when they talk about this, is it turning upwards? Are they smiling? So visualize yourself in the position that they describe and put in as much detail as you can. I mean, go down the rabbit hole with this as if you were actually there. And you will increase your ability to harness that neural resonance when you actually really need it in negotiations. It's tough because I know in real estate, most of our negotiations take place on by phone. And there is this 70, there's 7, 38, 55% rule. So there's a couple famous studies out there that outline what makes us like and dislike people. And 7% of the message is based on the words. So how many times have we said to ourselves, it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. I am completely guilty of that. I can have a pretty harsh tone. I can have an excited tone. I can have a passionate tone. But really it's not the words, it's how I'm saying it. So 38% is understood through the voice and the tone. And then another whopping 55% is from the speaker's body language and face. So that's why, you know, it's really tough. We only have like 45% of our assessment tools available to us on the phone. So if at all possible, and I know it's really not the world for doing it these days with, you know, Zoom and everything, but, or with, you know, all the virtual stuff and everything is basically online or on the computer. There's not a whole lot of in-person negotiations. But that's why it's really, really important. I think that obviously there's not a listing presentation where we're not, you know, showing up in person. But that's why it's really also important to do the buyer's presentations over Zoom. And you explain to them that this is really 95% visual. What drives me crazy is when they turn off their camera during that presentation, because I want to be able to read them through their body language and their face. But anyway, we can't really control that, but that's why I always like to get them over Zoom for that buyer's consultation. So I can really kind of assess whether or not it's somebody that is going to be a fit to work with, you know, because not everybody's a fit. So if at all possible, try to negotiate or present so where you can at least see them or in person. I love it when people ask me to, you know, meet them at Starbucks and do a buyer's presentation there, because then you get the full gamut of your assessment tools and you're able to really make a powerful connection. So talking about, tactical empathy. Like I said, there's nothing more frustrating in a negotiation than to get the feeling you're talking to someone that isn't listening. Saying you don't understand is fine, it's legitimate, but ignoring their position altogether makes them less likely to do what you want. So really what we're trying to coerce them into, you know, agreeing with us and helping us solve our problem. So we want to really be active listeners there. Labeling has a special advantage when people are tense. Like I said, it exposes the negative thoughts. It makes them a little less scary. So listing the worst things. So this is called an accusation audit. I'm going to have to do this with a client of mine, and it's not going to be comfortable, but I'm basically going to, you know, say some negative things about myself and say that I might have dropped the ball on a couple things and really call myself out. So this is the accusation audit. So it prepares myself to head off all these negative dynamics before they even take root. So some of this stuff might not be what they're thinking, but I'm going to label it and I'm going to make an audit of myself. And, you know, that's kind of the line why we say, you know, hopefully I'm not dropping the ball on anything. It's basically already saying, hey, we're accusing ourselves that we may have dropped the ball. So it's a really powerful thing to kind of make that stuff not seem as important or scary as it normally would. So the first thing you want to do is detect the emotion when you're figuring out the label, and you do that by paying really close attention. So you want to validate where they're coming from by mirroring. So we kind of heard about mirroring the last words, and then label it with label their emotions with it seems like, it sounds like, it looks like. It much different than I'm hearing that, or an I statement that gets people's guard up and defensive. But it seems like, it sounds like, it looks like, much easier to swallow. It's okay to have them disagree with the label because you're just saying it only seemed like. And then the last rule of the label is to be silent. So once you've thrown out the label, be quiet and listen and let it do its work. It's just like the mirror. You have to kind of sit and be uncomfortable with that. So the tactical empathy is getting into that understanding the feelings and the mindset of another in the moment. So hearing what is behind the feelings is the most important thing here, and increasing your influence in the moments along the way. So you really want to kind of hear the story behind the story, and just by asking really good questions and listening. So here's the negotiation styles. I would like a little bit of participation in this if we could. I wanted to see what you guys thought your negotiation style is. And then I want to kind of talk about why it's important to label these, to kind of know who you're working with when it comes to negotiations. So the first one is the analyst. So the characteristics on the analyst are they're methodical and diligent. They hate surprises. Their self-image is tied to minimizing mistakes. They prefer to work on their own. They're a reserved problem solver. They're an information aggregator. They are skeptical by nature, and they may appear to agree, but just agreeing to think about it. They're slow to answer calibrated questions, and apologies have little value. They're able to kind of separate the person from the negotiation. They're not one and the same. They kind of view themselves, analysts, as realistic, prepared, and smart. But to many, they come off as cold and standoffish. The way that you can kind of win them back, if you will, is to show them that you're ready to get stuff done. So these guys are really data driven. So you want to use data comparisons. They're fine with labels because that's kind of data in their eyes. That works really well with them. The next one is the accommodator. So the relationship is the most important thing to the accommodator. They're happy when they're communicating. They're sociable, peace-seeking, optimistic. They're very poor time managers. You want to watch the tone and body language. They won't express hesitancy in words, but sometimes their words and their body language don't match up. So that's where you want to kind of maybe ask a question like, I hear you saying this, but it seems like you might be thinking this. So labels work pretty well with them as well. Calibrated questions. The risk is with working with accommodators, they may overpromise and offer something that they can't deliver. When it comes to, I forgot to say the analyst, time equals preparation and silence equals time to think. So you're probably, with the analyst, you're probably, if you're in silence, you'll probably get a really uncomfortable silence for quite some time. Don't fill that space if you know you're working with an analyst, because it's giving them time to think about their next thing that they want to ask you or next thing they want to say. But with the accommodator, time equals relationship building. So really no time is wasted. They could basically get nothing done, right? They could just sit there and just have a good old time, you know, building rapport, but nothing actually ever gets done. And silence to the accommodator is very upsetting. So they think that you're angry when you're silent. The worst match for an accommodator is another accommodator, because essentially they just never get anything done. Then there's the assertive type. So the assertive type, it needs mutual respect, nothing more, nothing less. They're all about respect. Perfect solution, less important than getting it done. They're doers, they're action oriented. They love to win above all else. They're prone to tunnel vision, and that makes it's a negative in that they're probably missing some opportunities to connect or build rapport, because they're all about what they need to get done. Their emotions can tend to cloud their decision making. They view negotiations, they're very comfortable in that space, and they kind of view it as an intellectual sparring. The way to deal with them is focus first on what they have to say, and because they'll only listen if they're convinced that you understand them. So and then time equals money to them, and silence is just more time for them to talk. So they're probably going to fill that space pretty quickly. That's one of the big tells for an assertive. So the golden rule doesn't really apply when it comes to negotiation. It's really more the platinum rule. And we've talked about that before in some of our other classes, but don't treat others the way you want to be treated. Treat them the way they need to be treated. So Terry, what negotiation style are you, good sir?
I would say accommodator.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, but it seems like I'm kind of trying to like take on traits of the analyst a little bit more. But
Yeah,
naturally, probably naturally accommodator.
absolutely. And I think that comes from our time in service. We were kind of like, my saying, the answer is yes. What's the question? I just want people to be happy and like me. And then I think that I've got a leg up, because if you like me, then you're going to do what I want, right? Doesn't always work out that way, but I agree with you on the analyst, because we run into more of those these days than I've been comfortable with. They're really very, very slow to make decisions. And in this market, that we were experiencing for the last couple of years, it was kind of frustrating. I had a couple analysts last year, and it was hours. It was literally hours of talks with these people. And, ultimately the accommodator in me wants to make them happy and comfortable. But they can really easily talk themselves out of a deal. Very, very easily. Ashley, what would you say is your negotiation style? You can type it if you want. Between accommodator, assertive at times. Heavy on the accommodator side. Yes, I would definitely agree with that. I've seen a lot of assertive from Ashley, but she does it in an accommodating way. So the cool thing is that you can really incorporate these styles and make them work off of each other. And in knowing who you're dealing with, you can figure out which style will work best for that situation. How about you, Josiah?
Yeah, I also definitely an accommodator. Some of the analyst traits, but pretty much an accommodator.
Yeah. I was thinking that none of us are assertive here. I would even say that, I maybe would think Jason's kind of an assertive, but Joe, I think, is an accommodator. That's just what I see. They might consider themselves something different. But that's it's cool to kind of know about this stuff. And what I was gonna say too was, you can kind of see that the different styles, they regard time different and silence different. So for analysts, silence means it's time to think. Well, they wouldn't really go well with an assertive, because assertives thinks it's time for me to talk. right? So that could be really off-putting. And then silence for, the analyst is in silence and they're literally thinking, well, the accommodator thinks they're upset, right? So just kind of by knowing your counterpart's style, I think it can, kind of get you out of that obstacle of, connecting with the people. And keep in mind to just kind of be yourself, right? They talk about 33% of people will like you, 33% will be undecided, and the other 33% just won't like you. So if you try to be someone that you're not, then you'll probably miss out on the other 66% that would have probably liked you if you'd just been yourself. So keep in mind also 66% of the other people are not like you. So your normal isn't their normal. So it's really an opportunity for us to ask better calibrated questions and, get to know their styles better. So this is kind of a fun little thing. It's kind of putting everything that we were talking about. This is super comprehensive, all this stuff, and it's kind of deep. But this incorporates a bit of everything. The extreme anchors, loss aversion, reciprocity, some of the psychological tactics that, negotiation has in it. So the Ackerman bargaining method is basically you set your price in your mind. I think, Terry, you had a really, really great example of this. Like you knew your people wanted to start here, right? At I think it was 740.
Yeah.
But you knew that they would go up to 770. So your goal was 770 and a signed contract. That was your goal. So you didn't necessarily set your first offer at 65% of that goal, but you did kind of start low, right? And then you did increments and raises as you went up from there. You want to use a lot of empathy. So I heard you doing that a little bit, like, I hear you, the market's shifting a little bit. And I know it's hard to price places nowadays. And, we're kind of just trying to figure out what's going on here. So you're there with him, but I want to get this deal done. Right. So you want to get to the other side of that no before they even counter you. So you can have more rapport. So you're like, hey, you're just like me. Right. That's what you want to kind of say to that person. So when calculating the final amount, and I know we talked about this, Terry, is you use a precise non-round number. This gives credibility and weight. It gives the perception that you really thought about that final number. Like, wow, this guy really calculated down to the dollar exactly what he could spend. I mean, he must really, really have thought this through. Right. So it gives it that depth and weight. And then on the final number, throw in a non-monetary item to show that you're at your limit. It's probably something they're not going to want anyway, but you do it as kind of a, I'm giving you something, so you give me something back. Right. So Terry, it wasn't non-monetary, but it was kind of a outlier. Right. So it was like, hey, I'm going to give you 770. And then, so I'm going to give you your list price. We're just going to ask for a little bit of closing costs over here, right? And so there was kind of a win-win situation. It wasn't splitting the difference, right? It was giving something that was kind of an outlier give so that you could get something back, which was a signed contract, hopefully. So this incorporates all those kind of tactics and really, really effective. So the heart of negotiation is collaboration. I hope that you were able to get a little value out of this. It's just really skimming the surface. But remember that information is nothing without implementation. So that's why we role play every Wednesday for a couple hours. Life is a negotiation. So we have infinite opportunities to practice. And I do definitely recommend you guys doing the neural resonance practice, because I think that that's where our strength in our group lies. We have a heart of service in this group, and we lift each other up and we encourage each other. And I know that there's nothing I wouldn't do for you guys to make something happen if you guys needed it. And I think that that is our superpower when it comes to this group, is a heart of service and teamwork. You're not going to really find that in a lot of other places. I mean, it's few and far between, but we've built this up, and it takes each one of you individuals to make it happen. So I really thank you for being a part of the Madrona Group. And, I just love being able to be of service. And I love hearing from you guys, because your perspective is what keeps me going. I really love to hear it from your guys' point of view, because I respect you. So any questions before we stop? I can't believe I stretched it out an hour. There's so much that we could have talked about, but I tried to keep it informational and moving forward.